Om Ganati Mananda Sangana Saraka Chaksurin Meditam Yana Tajmai Srigurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Samrupakaramayam Danati Swaparantikam Vandeham Siguru Siyata Parakamaram Shigurun Vaishnavam Sya Sirupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sirada Krishna Paran Sahagana Larita Shivishakan Vitam Stam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Pacharine Nivashesa Sunyavadi Praskata Desanani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavindam Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chevadanotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyam Tato Jayodiret Nashta Prayashu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagata Sevaya Bhagavati Shuki Bhakti Vavati Naistiki Nigamakapurugaritam Param Shukamagaramita Samidam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamadam Mahora Horashikova Krishna Swadam Apagade Damigini Karona Stadi Samasho Paranako Duno Ditaham Twamapiyadavishuta Vishutam Vivosam Hapiadana Virambiduxaram Prakayado Maharadam Sanklation Nirvanamusanti Nanyatam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sarigo Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Welcome to Transcendental Tuesday. How are you doing this morning, Rob?
I'm well, Prabhuji. Thank you for asking.
Are you
It's a beautiful morning.
Are you in the fields there in Draper?
Every morning.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're starting to get some body to our plants now. There's a lot of greenery now out there in the gardens as the plants get higher and the leaves get fuller. So we're excited, doing weeding and watering every single day. But we're also getting ready to launch ourselves up into Salt Lake. As you see from our background, we're trying to get in the mood of the first Color Festival in 2 years. It's coming up this coming Saturday, June 12th in Salt Lake City from 11 in the morning till 5 in the evening. If you haven't got your tickets, go to bestofcolorsusa.com. Not you, Rob. You're going to come as a volunteer, so you got to worry about admission. But just saying, anybody who might be local and might be listening to this broadcast. Also, because we're our mind is full of thoughts about the upcoming festival, and I have a doctor's appointment early tomorrow morning. We're not going to have tomorrow. We're going to skip Wisdom Wednesday. And at this point, frankly, I can't speak for next Monday either, because I'm not sure if literally and figuratively all the dust will have settled by next Monday. So if we need more time to recover from the event, then next motivational Monday might also be a casualty as well. So we'll see. Good morning, Sanjay. Good morning, Jean. Thanks very much for joining us online. We're going to revisit this famous verse, Jigupsarim Dharma Kirtana Shasira Shabhava Raktasya Yad Bhakato Dharma Titaranda Manyate Tasya Niyavaranam Janaha. Speaking to his disciple, Narada Muni says, people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy. That's a pretty fair statement, isn't it? We are pleasure-seeking living entities. I think the first time I went to the temple in Australia and heard the first lecture by Upendra, there in that little rented place in Potts Point, he told us that we are pleasure-seeking living beings. We don't want people to get the wrong impression from Krishna consciousness, because there's talk about renunciation, there's talk about sacrificing everything for Krishna. Sacrifice doesn't mean you give it away. Sacrifice doesn't mean you deprive or cheat yourself of the pleasures of life. Sacrifice means you go ahead and do what you're doing, being careful not to transgress any of the universal laws of nature, the prime one of which is thou shalt not kill. But go ahead and do what you do as long as it's authorized and sanctioned by the Lord who created everything with certain purposes in mind. But enjoy through the process of serving the Lord. When the finger's joined to the hand, then it really enjoys. Whatever the finger gathers and puts in the stomach, the nourishment is distributed back not only to the finger, but all to the other parts of the body. There's no question of the finger enjoying severed from the hand. Finger lying in the street It's useless. People kick it, get it out of sight as soon as possible. But that same finger joined to the hand, if it's the hand of a violinist or a famous guitarist, that finger might be insured for $10 million through Lloyd's of London. So we're not saying not to enjoy. We're talking about the way to really enjoy as a part of the whole. When the part tries to enjoy separately from the whole, it creates for itself an impossible goal. Purusha prakriti, bhunkte prakriti karanam guna sangashat sadasat. We're the enjoyed. Now that's not to say we don't enjoy. We do enjoy as the enjoyed, if that makes any sense. The servant, for instance, of the rich man. He lives in the same house as the rich man. He wears the handed down clothes of the rich man. He drives the car of the rich man. He has at his access all the assets of the rich man. So as servants, it's not that we go around threadbare, starving to death with our ribs showing. No, when you're servants, even if you're employed by a multinational company, you have good food, good transport, good housing, good clothes, good medical policy. The multinational MNC makes sure that its employees are well taken care of. Why? So they can do their best work for the company. So in the same way, when you're serving the whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as an integral, indispensable part, you're never going to have to worry about housing or food or income, health. Krishna is going to make sure that you have all these things at your beck and call so you can be your best servant. So when we talk about sacrifice or renunciation, we're not talking about giving up all the pleasures of life, but we're just talking about dovetailing, enjoying through Krishna, because it is not possible to enjoy apart from Krishna. Otherwise, it is probably one of the truest statements in the world to say that we're all inclined to enjoy. The issue is how to enjoy, with whom to enjoy, and where to enjoy. Now, Vyasadeva, in compiling the Vedic literatures, covering the areas of artha, karma, dhamma, moksha, economic development, sense gratification, righteousness, and liberation, kind of opened the door for people to think of religion as a means to enjoy separate from God. Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva, this crack in the door should not have been opened, would have better not been opened. Keep it closed. It's condemned, especially in the name of religion. And people who enjoy, and they can enjoy it apart from religion, but when you mix and make the compromise of introducing enjoyment in religion, it's like you put an extra ingredient in the batter, and then the result, the cake, comes out different than it was meant to come out. So when you make these kinds of compromises, you take religion, which is meant to channel all of your efforts purely through the Lord, without asking the Lord for anything, just depending on the Lord as your loving Father to take care of you better than you could take care of yourself. That's real religion. But when you mix in the enjoying spirit, not the enjoying spirit, but the spirit of wanting to enjoy separately from the Lord. And how do we know what are the symptoms of someone who wants to enjoy separately? A man is known, his inner consciousness is known by his speech. The words that he says are most revealing as far as his inner thoughts and inner desires and emotions. So the words that are most often spoken by people who want to enjoy separately from the Lord are I and mine. Not the Lord and his, but I and mine. So by making the compromise of introducing I and mine into the Vedic scriptures, it is said that Vyasadeva has done a disservice to human society. People want to do their own whimsical, separate, capricious, unbona fide, unauthorized activities, and they'll look for some mention of it in scriptures in order to rationalize or justify their activities. And in this way, pseudo-religionists, wolves in sheep's clothing, can quote scripture, start unauthorized, unbonafide religious movements, and lead people totally away from any sort of religious, God-centered life. The human form of life is unique amongst all the 8,400,000 species of life which are spread throughout the universe, inasmuch as it is a chance to get out of the prison house of this material world. Human form of life is not meant for living a polished life of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, just like the animals. It's uniquely opportune for reestablishing our lost relationship with God. And under those circumstances, consider the unique and unparalleled opportunity which is available to us in the human form of life. One should never be engaged or encouraged to make a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religion. The perfection of life will never be reached on the path of voluminous work, accumulation of wealth, increasing the population. The path of perfection is the path of renunciation. And renunciation does not mean to give everything up and go live in a cave somewhere near Kanab. My wife and I took 4 days off not too long ago to go to Kanab in southern Utah. There's some amazing caves there. Did you know? This is departure. There's a cave there on the main road. I think it's 189. That is it's huge. It's a tourist attraction. And the story goes that many years ago, all the Hollywood cowboy movies were made in Kanab. So Randolph Scott, John Wayne spent weeks and months there in Kanab. So a guy named Carpenter, Joe Carpenter, bought this cave outside of Kanab and set it up as a bar. He was a Mormon. He kind of waived his principles for economic gain and opened this cave as a bar. So all the Hollywood stars, after a hot day riding horses in the hot sun in the gorges and canyons of Kanab, and it gets hot in southern Utah, they would go to this cave where there was a bar and stools to have a cool one after a hard day's work. And the bar, you go into the cave and there's 3 rooms, one to the left, which is now a gift store, the one straight ahead, which is replicated just the way it was. It's a very spacious bar area, which could fit easily 30 or 40 people. And then behind it, right back in the bowels of the cave, there's a huge room where they used to dance on Friday and Saturday nights. Myrna Loy and Randolph Scott, can you imagine? But anyway, I got distracted here. We're not meant, when we say renunciation, we're not talking about going off and living in a cave. And by the way, that cave was hardly meant for any renunciation. But renunciation is described by Rupa Goswami's Bhaktivinoda. Anashaktasya Visham Yadaram Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta. Everything is created by Krishna. As a creator, he has the ownership of everything. We should use everything in his service, not renouncing computers, not renouncing motor cars, not renouncing watches, not renouncing technology. It's technology which enables me to come to you, even as far away as Malaysia, Malini Priti. Technology is neither good or bad. The fact of it is, it all comes from Krishna. So what we do is renounce the selfish, the I use of it. And we use whatever we have, whatever comes into our influence, we use that in order to honor and to glorify the Lord. That is renunciation. One time there was an article many years back in the 60s in Los Angeles about Spiritual Sky Incense Company, which was run by the devotees, and it had made $1 million that year. And that occasioned an article about how the Hare Krishnas had made $1 million a year selling incense. And one of the devotees came up to Prabhupada with the article and said, Prabhupada, isn't that Maya? Prabhupada said, how can anything that makes $1 million a year be called Maya? That is, in fact, a higher level of renunciation. If you can make $1 million and use it to build temples and sponsor festivals, that is a higher level of renunciation than going off and living in a cave. If you can raise God-conscious children, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our Param Guru's guru, he raised 12 children several of which were pure devotees of the Lord, and one was our guru's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So it's not that we don't raise children. We raise God-conscious children to push on the movement. It's not that the pure devotees can't be businessmen. They make money, and then they use that money to serve Krishna. Graphic arts, auto mechanics, flower arranging, cleaning, painting. Right now, Vaibhavi's engaged in another a masterpiece. It's a wonderful picture of Radha and Krishna, which will go up into the Salt Lake City temple. Whatever you do, as long as it's not intersecting with illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating, can be dovetailed in the service of Krishna. Now, not only whatever you do can be used for the service of the Lord, but whoever you are. There's no bar. There are no qualifications per se, save and except a willingness to purify oneself. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sukadeva Goswami establishes right off in the second canto, fourth chapter of the Bhagavatam, Kirata Halinda Palina Kabashab Hiri Shamba Yavana Yene Chapapada Sudanti Tajme Pravaveshnave Namaha. The lower born living beings, roughly appearing within the human society, but in more primitive settings, more barbaric situations, or Kirata Hulinda Pulinda Pakashab Hiri Yavana Kasharia. When this was written 5,000 years ago, there were Aboriginal races, there were Mongolian races, there were various races spread throughout the world, which lived in primitive circumstances. And obviously that birth, if you believe in cause and effect, and in fact cause and effect basically runs the world, then those births are as a result of less than desirable choices in a past life. One takes birth in those species as a result of sinful life in a previous lifetime. So the birth itself is not particularly auspicious. However, the power of chanting the holy name of the Lord, taking prasadam, consecrated vegetarian food offered to the Lord, is such that Prabhupada says anybody, even the Aborigines, the Mongolians, the Kirata, Halinda, and we're also, before Prabhupada came to the Western world, we were meat eaters, we were woman hunters, we were drunkards. There's a general term to describe the fallen category of men, which is malecha, uncultured, uncivilized living beings who lay outside the purview of the Vedic culture. And yet at the same time, doesn't matter how dark or abysmal one's background is, or even one's present circumstances, the light of spirit is so powerful that it will always counteract, it will always roll back, send into retreat darkness, no matter how impenetrable. Sujanti Tajmai Prabhavishnave. Prashant is here with the quote, the reference in the comment section, if you're interested in that. And prior to that, he posted an Ashaktasha Vishan. We're always happy to have Prashant on board because he drops the breadcrumbs. Whatever trail we take in our discussion, he will give you the means to retrace that thread by dropping breadcrumbs, giving the links to all of the various verses that we quote. And here's one more along these lines from the 32nd verse of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, Mam hi partha vyapashita yepi shupar striya sudhistata vaisha yepi yanti param gati. Anyone, even if they're not born as a cultured, aristocrated Brahmin in an exalted high-class family, if they're merchants, if they're of the fair sex, if they're workers, it doesn't really matter what their social status is. It can also attain the supreme perfection. How and why? Yepi yanti param gatim. By taking shelter of someone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So our process is to shelter those who have sheltered ultimately grasping on to the lotus feet of the Lord. Ayananda tanuja kinkaram petitam mam vishame kripaya taba pada pangajastida dula vichintam vichintaya. Well, our aspiration is to serve the Lord in some capacity. Narottam Das Thakur says, please give me shelters and Adam at your lotus feet. Please do not kick me away. When one gets that connection, which is called yoga, yoga is the derivative from the English word yoke. We connect to the Lord. How do we as parts connect to the whole? Only one way. Not by mental speculation, not by fruitive activity, not by becoming a big mystic yogi. Only way the part can connect to the whole. Go back to the example of the finger. Only way the finger can connect in a meaningful, satisfactory way to the whole body is by serving. Service is our connection. Service is the yoga. Yoga is not something you do for an hour a day to maintain good health. Yoga is something you do for 24 hours a day in order to maintain your connection with your source, your creator, your best friend, and loving Father. So when we're talking right now and you're listening, that's yoga. If you're doing flower garlands, that's yoga. If you're cooking an offering for the deities, that's yoga. If you're mowing the lawn for the temple to make it look nice, that's yoga. Landscaping, taking care of Krishna's animals, growing Krishna's food, fixing Krishna's cars, providing insurance for Krishna's properties, all that. Organizing festivals such as the big one we're having this weekend, all that is yoga, and you can do it 24 hours a day. There are described in the Nectar Devotion 64 possible areas of activity by which one can always remain in yoga. And because there are so many of them, if you get tired of doing one thing, you can switch. So that way each and every day can be full of variety. There'll be certain things that we're attracted to because of the thumbprint of God upon us. And we can do those, but we can shift from one to another, to another, to another, to another. And at no time, even though a devotee appears superficially to be doing the same things that ordinary people are doing, cleaning, cooking, driving, building, gardening, so it may seem like it. What's the difference? Non-devotees are building, devotees are building, non-devotees are driving, non-devotees are making money, devotees are making money. Still, it's to be understood that each and one of those activities, as mundane as they may appear, are in fact transcendental. They have nothing to do with this material world, because the goal, the enjoyer, Bhoktaram Yagatapasham Sarvaloka, Suriram Sarvabuddha Gyatva Mam Santim Richiti. The Lord is the enjoyer. The Lord is meant, Aham hi sarva yagyaram bhoktacha iti mamya tatpanatma. All your activities are meant for pleasing the Lord. The Lord is meant to be the beneficiary, the enjoyer of all of our activities, because he's the root, he's the owner and the proprietor. It says those who do not recognize the Lord is the enjoyer, tatpanatma, they fall down. They fall down, because when you act to enjoy the fruits of your work yourself, then you become liable for the reactions. And those reactions harass you. They come at you from the left, from the right, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. It's like dodgeball. You ever played dodgeball when you were kids? So those balls were being thrown at you, some at your head, some at your knees, some at your legs, some from the left, some at the right. You were always off balance. Never peaceful, never able to gain traction or momentum to accomplish your dreams. We don't want to be always in a reactive mode. We don't always want to be smacked on the left side and the right side and behind and apart. We want to give all the results of our actions to Bhaktaram, to Krishna. Let him absorb the reaction so that we can just focus on our service. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yad karosi, yad ishnasi, yad jahosi, yad tabashasi kanteya, tad karushmet arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, however you expend your energy, do it with the goal of satisfying me. Make Krishna the recipient. You simply act as an instrument. Those who are instruments in the service of the Lord, who are not doers, but they are servers, are never touched by the modes of material nature. They're not in goodness. They're not in sattva. They're not in rajas. They're not in tamas. They're not bound by the gunas, by the ropes of this material nature. Neither are they going to take another material body again in this material world. Mam Chyabu Bhakti Yoga Saganim Sanya Brahma Bhuyat. One who engages, this is in the 26th chapter, 14th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstance, at once transcend the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahma. Now we come to the title of today's talk, which are 3 kinds of births. I found this verse in the 4th canto, 31st chapter, 10th verse. Kim janmabis turbir veha shoka shavita yagnika karmabir va traya prokta pumsam pi vivadayu shaham. Here it's explained. A civilized human being has 3 kinds of births. The first birth, if one has a background of Krishna consciousness and piety, is by a pure father and mother. And this is called the birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. Even in Christianity, it's talked about you have to be born again. You have to die and you have to be born again. So this second birth, where you get your spiritual father, is called Savitra. My name, my birth name, from my seminal father and mother was Chris. However, when I got initiated in May of 1970 by my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he changed my name to Caru. Now, someone might question, if the purpose of your name is to remind you of your spirituality, Chris should have been adequate because it reminds you of Christ. Lord Jesus Christ did great work in the service of the Lord. And so if you wanted a spiritual name, Chris should have been adequate. There was no need to change your name to Caru. That may be so, but the fact is that your actual spiritual life does not begin until you're connected in the chain of disciplic succession by initiation through a bona fide spiritual master. Prahlad Maharaj gives the example, electricity is everywhere, but you can't take advantage of it. Only through the outlet can you get the advantage of electricity. So Chris is all fine and dandy, but Caru indicates that I'm duly initiated and connected to a bona fide spiritual master who himself is connected to another who is another. This is the prescription in the Bhagavad Gita. Don't bypass this all-important step. Had vini pranipanena pariprasnena se upadexayat gyaninas tattvadarshana. It is absolutely essential to learn the truth from someone who has seen the truth and who is engaged in the service of the absolute truth, so that you have a living, breathing model, an exemplar. I'm inspired to do a lot of quotes because Prashant is with us today. Whatever a great man does by exemplary acts, locus tada navartate, all the world pursues. Now, at this point, you might think, what's the third birth? It seems like you got it, the physical and the spiritual covered by the seminal verse and by the birth by a spiritual master called Savitra. But the third birth, Savitra, means your Yaga Pavitra. You get your sacred thread at the time of Diksha by a bona fide spiritual master. But this verse describes yet a third birth called Yagita. And that is when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. And it is said that despite the opportunities for attaining these 3 births, even if one gets the lifespan of Lord Brahma, a demigod, if one does not engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. That means if you get a human birth in a good family, if there are walking the face of the earth pure devotees who are willing to give you shelter and train you in the art of devotional service, and if as a result of that connection, you're able to engage in the bona fide service of the Lord under his bona fide representative, and you do not take advantage of those opportunities, even if you lived a lifetime of a Brahma, even if you do charity and philanthropy and do good works for millions and trillions of years, without without hitting the target, without aiming as an atom at the lotus feet of the Lord, all those endeavors are useless. Because atapum biodvijasteshashmanasham sonusitashadamasham samsidaharitashanam. Lord Jesus Christ said, what profit of the man if he gains the whole world but loses eternal soul? He was simply echoing the words of Narada Muni, who said this 3,000 years before Christ, Chakva Sharanam Charanam Bhujam. Chakva, those who give up or miss the opportunity to serve Charanam Bhujam, the lotus feet of the Lord, Chakva Sharanam Charanam Bhujam, Bhajana Pakva Topateti, Yatra Kavada Buddha Kovartap Tambajatam Sharamaha. They get no profit out of however long a lifespan they have. But on the other hand, those who even make a slight advancement in God consciousness, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They get a foothold, they get a toehold in devotional service. And whatever advancement one makes in one lifetime, one will resume that when one again intersects with Krishna consciousness. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution. Even a slight advancement saves one from the greatest dangers. Ultimately, we want to get our purified, eternal, spiritual body. This material body is not who we are. Although we say, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm an American, I'm Caucasian, I'm African American, I'm Hispanic. That describes the body. It does not describe the living being who inhabits the body. You don't introduce yourself according to the car you drive. You don't say, I'm Miss Hyundai, I'm Mr. Ford, I'm Mrs. Subaru. We know that the car is different from the driver. Similarly, this body is always in a state of change. The mind is always in a state of change, but the soul, the living being, never changes. From boyhood to youth and then to old age, throughout continuous changes of the body during the life cycle, I am always I. The body is always different. Might be a toddler, might be a juvenile, might be an adolescent, might be a college student, might be a businessman, a husband, a father, a retiree, a golfer, a RVer. The body has different adjectives depending on what stage of life you're in. But the soul, the self, is always constantly the I. And the mind is not who we are, because if we can change our body 6 or 8 or 10 times during the course of an 80-year lifespan, we change the mind 16 million times. We change the mind like the wind shifts direction. So we're neither the body nor the mind. They're constantly in a state of change. Janmada sade meva drishta deyasha, atmanam turatmanam kalaneshwari mantanam. Everything in this material world goes through 6 basic changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, dwindling, and vanishing. From that tiny germ to the universe and the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma itself. So in a changing universe, with changing mindsets and mentalities, that which doesn't change is the living entity. And that living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. So we need to find out that way by which we do not have to continually change our bodies. It is the worst inconvenience. It is the greatest trouble to have to change your body when you yourself are eternal and you have essentially an eternal, spiritual, blissful body full of nothing. Why, considering all this, would one want to dabble in material life, assume the consequences of one's actions as the doer, as the enjoyer, and get burdened down, covered and suffocated by all the consequences of one's actions? It is said that in the last analysis, the gross body that we have is generated by the subtle body. This subtle body is called Shukshma Bhyam. The subtle body, naturally in its wholesome, healthy state, is mad after serving the Lord. But being contaminated, it's like a clear drop of water. As soon as it hits the mud, it gets muddy. So the pure Shukshmavyam, the subtle body, some or other being overwhelmed by this material nature, has acted under the misimpression that it is the body for who knows how many previous lifetimes. So the disillusion of this material body, and with it birth, death, disease, and old age, the disillusion of all miseries and sufferings, the fulcrum, the key is the mind. It is the mind by which we've come to accept this body, this far less than ideal circumstances. And it is by crucial elemental changes in the mind that we will again generate our original spiritual body and ascend back home, back to God. Prabhupada says in one purport, in the subtle body, the mind is predominant. And therefore, if one's mind can be trained to be always absorbed in and remembering the activities of the lotus feet of the Lord, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Yad para pankaja palashivada karmasanam garita taravam yasha mateo shrotagrams tamaranavasanam. By hearing and chanting and using the senses of this body, which are themselves spiritual, in the service of the Lord, those senses grow. We've been engaged materially, and so we've gotten covered by material senses, material eyes, material nose, material tongue, material ears. But as soon as one begins to transfer the quality and the nature of one's activities to be God-centered under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, then the senses spiritualize. The senses blossom and bloom, so that even while in this present body, when one is Savai Mana Krishna Pararavinda Vasamchi Vaikunta Bhagunanaram, when all of one's senses, Srotam, Chakshu, Sparsanam, Chalarashanam, Adistyamanashanam, the senses are generated from the mind. So when the mind is purified by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, then what comes from the purified mind are the purified senses. What is our conclusion? Even within this body, if someone is engaged, all of one's mind, all of one's energy, all of one's words, all of one's thoughts, all of one's deeds in the service of the Lord, itam bhutam haragari, such a one is considered to be liberated. That underneath and behind this material body is the fully evolved, fully mature spiritual form. So death is just a formality. Matir mayena varim navipadir shmitu shamara nagarhina evam Krishna matavram nashakta kale pradurbita tirit saramani. Narada Muni, who's speaking this verse to his disciple Vyasadeva, in his previous life, he had lost his mother, he had lost his father. As a 5-year-old boy, he attached himself to the Bhaktivedantas. He he followed them, he developed great faith in them, and in full Krishna consciousness, he left his body. It is said that the moment he left his body, just like lightning and illumination, it was instantaneous. The moment he left, he dropped this material body, his spiritual body emerged just like fire from wood. Why? Because it was already there. The dropping of the material body, the gross body, at the time of his previous death was merely a formality. He was already a totally liberated soul. In the Bhagavad Gita, 46th verse, 2nd chapter, Krishna says, Yata yavan artudapane sarvata tavan sarvashava brahmanasya viganata. All the purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. One who is engaged in Krishna consciousness may not have been born in an exalted family, may not have gotten the Yajnapovit from a socially acceptable Brahmin, may not in fact be a Brahmin himself, may not have studied all the Vedic literatures. Far from it, might have taken birth as a Chandala in the family of dog eaters. Doesn't matter. All the purposes of the Vedas can be served by one who knows the purpose behind them. Vedas cha saham Vedanta kid Vedic id evacham. Krishna says, I am the Vedas, I am the knower of the Vedas, I am the compiler of the Vedas. It is by study of the Vedas that Krishna is to be known. So if one knows Krishna, then one knows the Vedas even without having studied them. It is said, Aho bata shrachapo yoguri and yajdevage vartata te pus che juvenasha brahmana chur nama grinati. It says, how glorious are those whose tongues, Aho bato shrapacho jivargre vartate namatubhyam, chanting your holy name. Shrapacho, even if they're born in the family of dog eaters, they are worshipable. They must have performed tepus tepu jushna shashnir arya, performed penances and austerities, done sacrifices. They are the best of the Aryans, brahmacharya namagritante, bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas and done everything required. How do we know that? Because they've reached the pinnacle, the culmination. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just as we know someone who's sitting as a high court judge on the bench must have passed all the law school courses, passed the bar, graduated from general education. He must have done that as a prerequisite for sitting on the bar. So anyone who's fully Krishna conscious, engaged in the service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, has nothing, no responsibility. There's nothing for which they can be condemned or criticized. There's nothing undone in their lives because they have reached the conclusion. If you're on the top floor of the Empire State Building, it doesn't matter whether you took the elevator or the stairs. You got to where you need to go. So it is not the low class born. There's a class of men in India called the Smarta Brahmins who believe that even if you're chanting Hare Krishna, even if you're serving under bona fide spiritual master, even if you're taking prasadam, you still have to wait for your next birth to take birth as a Brahmin. But rather it is the Brahmins themselves who have to undergo different kinds of austerities before reaching the point of purification where they serve the Lord without that sense of ego, without that I-ness. It says, thus persons who are chanting the holy name of the Lord are transcendental to those performing Vedic rituals, transcendental to the Brahmin class, transcendental to the yogis, what to speak of the fruitive workers and the mental speculations, those who are performing devotional service, yoginam apisham visham magana shadaya badato heme yuktitama madaha. Don't take it from me. Take it to Krishna. Take it from Krishna, the concluding verse of the 5th chapter, which is called Yoga of the Supreme. Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham, of all yogis, madgaitinantaratmana, who worships me with great faith, shraddha bhajito yomam, and makes me the goal of all his endeavors, me the enjoyer, me the object of sacrifices, me the beneficiary, who enjoys through devotional service to me, teme yuktitamo mataha. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, says, in my opinion, such a yogi is the best of all. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That concludes our discussion, Transcendental Tuesday, and we're particularly grateful, Prashant. We kept you pretty busy today. So many verses. Thank you very much, Prashant. And those who really want to commit these teachings to heart would do well to go and find those verses, get yourself some sloka cards, repeat them, commit them to memory. There's nothing like being able to say the same words that the Lord and his pure devotees speak. We're not so intelligent, we're not so long-lived, we're not so intellectually adept that we can make up from scratch our own prayers. But we attain the full benefit, the full potency by memorizing and repeating the prayers of words of the Lord and the words of the Lord's pure devotees. Thank you for that service. Prashad, thanks for being with us. Gopishwara Das. Hare Krishna, good morning. Prashant. Britta, Hare Krishna, Britta, you're a joy. I'm so delighted anytime you jump on board. We appreciate any comments that you make. Wow, Prashant, just wow. Charan Chaitri, Hare Krishna. I haven't seen your name but a couple of times previous, so we're glad that you jumped on board. Sukshma, Hare Krishna, wherever you are. Sundari Priya, Hari Bo, Sundari Priya, probably getting a little nervous like I am because of our festival coming up this weekend. June the 12th, Saturday from 11 to 5. It'll be the first live Festival of Colors we've had in over 2 years. We're doing our best to make it a success. In that regard, I'll have too many things to do the rest of the week, and I have an early morning doctor's appointment tomorrow. So I'll have to give a miss on Wisdom Wednesday tomorrow. And I'm not sure about Monday either. I'm not sure that by Monday the dust will have settled. Ha 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 ha. Pun intended. So I'm not promising that I'll be with you either on Motivational Monday. Probably Transcendental Tuesday will be okay a week from now. Natasha, Hare Krishna, good morning. Bhakti Gary, please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Prabhupada. Vaibhavi says, pleasure is pleasing Krishna. When Krishna is pleased, we are pleased. That's exactly our point. Govinda Dev, Hare Krishna, good morning. I hope you're going to be in town this weekend because we're going to need your help. We're going to jump on our Zoom call tonight with the Salt Lake City board to finalize the last arrangement before this weekend's gala celebration. Krishna consciousness. Sanjay, wish you were still living in Utah because I know that you'd always be willing to jump in and volunteer. Jean, Hare Krishna, good morning. Thank you, one and all. Not sure if I can find all those who hit likes here. The like button is proving illusory. So then go ahead and comment. You know, I meet people all the time and say, oh, I listen to all your talks. I say, oh, come on, let us know you're out there. Hit a like button. Make a comment, even if it's only Hare Krishna or Glories to Prabhupada. We're all in this together. So don't lurk back into the shadows. Don't be a lurker. Pull your chair up to the front of the classroom. Pull out your notebook. Get the most out of what we offer. Get the most out of the time that we spend together on Motivational Monday, Transcendental Tuesday, and Wisdom Wednesday. Thank you. We'll be with you again. And if you're local, please join us for chanting and dancing, prasadam, celebrating the glories of the Lord this coming Saturday at our Salt Lake City campus. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Any last words, Rob? Got to hear from Rob before we sign off here.
Thank you, Prabhuji. What I took from that was don't try to renounce the senses as far as not allowing them to be engaged. Just engage them in pleasing Krishna, and you'll get a lot farther in this material existence. It's like the long-term investment instead of the short-term investment. Don't try to be the enjoyer. Instead, be the enjoyed and try to please the enjoyer.
You have got a great grasp of our philosophy. I'm always impressed by what you say. The senses are part of the spiritual self. So there's no question of throwing the senses overboard or repressing the senses. We just need to purify the senses. That's the path to reaching the perfection of life. Thank you very much for that insightful comment, Rob. We'll take everybody's leave with the excitement anticipation of being with you next Saturday. Even if you're not going to be physically present, I promise you that I will go on Facebook Live with the most exciting parts of the festival. So stay ready, stay alert. When you get a notification that we're going live, it will be something extremely enlivened, extremely celebratory, and extremely colorful. Saturday between 11 and 5. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.